What I'm trying to do is I actually do work at an observatory, and so we have people come in and they ask a lot of questions, and there are some questions that are more common than others. So not all the questions that I get are really questions that you can do a whole episode on, and some of them are really dun dun dun, that's the answer. I want to take care of the really common questions that I get all the time. Because the moon is tidally locked with Earth. What that means is as the moon orbits around us, it turns only once, which means that it is always facing the Earth with the same face. This is called tidal locking. Tidal locking occurs throughout the solar system. Titan is tidally locked to Saturn. All four Galilean moons, Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto, are locked to Jupiter. Triton is tidally locked to Neptune, and Pluto and Charon are tidally locked to each other. There is, as you may have guessed, no dark side of the moon, since the moon is tidally locked to Earth, but neither the Earth nor the moon is tidally locked to the sun, so the far side of the moon, the side we never see, gets the same amount of sunlight that the front side does. Okay, I do have to do an entire episode on Pluto, and it's sad but accurate demotion, but basically it hasn't cleared its orbit, and it never will. In order for a body to be considered a planet, it has to do three things: go around the sun, be massive enough for gravity to have pulled it into a sphere, which is called Hydrostatic Equilibrium, for those of you who are dying to know, and it has to clear its orbit. Pluto fails to do this because it's not massive enough and it's floating out in the Kuiper belt with a bunch of other junk. But the short answer is, humans found a ton of other Plutos, and it's very likely that there's a lot more where that came from. So Pluto is in a region with a bunch of very similar bodies, and they're very different from what we now know about all the other planets. Pluto's still out there doing his thing, so nobody cry, okay? It's not like we blew him up. This is going to have its own episode too, but it depends on what kind of life you're talking about. If you're talking about microbial life, my bet is a lot. We know of so many little microbes that can survive pretty much anywhere, and there are animals on Earth that have survived the vacuum and radiation and cold of space. And water? Yeah, it's all over. There's water on the moon, there's water on Mercury, heck, all of Europa is covered in water, it's just frozen. And don't even get me started on the Kuiper belt. Half of Pluto's mass is probably frozen H2O, so microbial life, sure, everywhere. I wouldn't even doubt plant life, but beyond that, we just have no idea. If you could ask Frank Drake or Carl Sagan, they'd probably say there's life all over the universe. If you ask Donald Brownlee, however, not so much. The problem really is there's only one data point. Us. So it's difficult to even estimate the rate at which complex life could evolve, would evolve, does evolve. You get the picture. But the good news is exoplanets are being found all the time, and we're learning more about other solar systems outside our own every day, and someday we might actually have a good estimate. 200, 400 billion? I know, 400 billion is twice as much as 200 billion, but that's the best estimate we have for the Milky Way right now. I don't know, but you should not try to lick one. The problem with black holes is once something gets past the event horizon, which is the point at which nothing, not even light, can escape from, and there are no exceptions. Your spaceship is not special. We get nothing. That means that if we send a probe into a black hole, we'll lose the signal. If we send a person in there to explore it, they'll die, and then we'll lose the signal. Nothing gets out of a black hole. Not on this end anyway. So we have no way of knowing what's in there. Now, there's a lot of theories about what's actually inside a black hole, ranging from a tiny little ball of stuff that's spinning really rapidly, where space has kind of sucked whatever matter into a tiny, tiny, tiny little ball inside of the black hole, to a region of space that's so whacked out that physics is essentially so different, it's like being on acid at a Pink Floyd concert in outer space.
It's good to be a geek. It's good to be a creep. It's good to draw my pictures and no one will ever see. It's good to be a geek. It's good to be a gnome. It's good I'll never wait in right beside the telephone. 'Cause no one ever.
If we send a person in there to explore it, they'll die, If we send a person in there to explore, if we send a person in there to explore, if we send a person in there to explore it, they'll die, and then we'll lose the signal.
I play Dungeons and Dragons. I got a 13th level halfling fighter thief. Got 7 hit die on the backstab. Sometimes you know it's good to be a geek. Well, it's good to be a geek. It's good to play the free.